Yeah, we're live, so whenever you want to start. Maybe wait a minute just for people to maybe join, and then you can just kind of go. Okay. Actually, this is the mic over here, so you guys are talking into it.
And it sounds like the audio is working, so.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are good to go.
So welcome to this session of financial literacy. My name is Tyler Saintmore. I am the assistant branch manager at TD Bank here in North Bay at the Laurentian branch.
I'm Shay Reed. I'm a personal banking advisor.
So essentially what we're looking to do today is, first off, we want to talk about the strategies by utilizing the different aspects of the financial literacy, which involves like budgeting, investing, and how to properly manage your entire financial strategy with regards to your lifestyle. Okay. Slide.
We'll also discuss credit. We'll go into what credit is, how your interest accumulates, how to build credit, and how that can help improve your credit score. And finally, we'll touch on savings and investments accounts that will help you save for your goals, along with providing resources that are available to help you to continue with your learning after this webinar.
So these are the three topics that we'll be discussing: is budgeting, credit, and investing. So each one, so we're going to start off with the budgeting. So the next slide. A budget is like your detailed plan, essentially, that outlines your income and your expenses over a period of time. The goal is to provide a framework to yourself to manage your finances, make informed decisions, and ensure that your financial resources are allocated to meet both your short-term and long-term needs.
Now, it's true that every one of us has our own unique financial circumstances. The budget that you make for yourself will be different from the person next to you or someone else. However, there are a few simple rules you can follow to create a realistic budget that will make navigating your finances less daunting, both now and in the long-term run.
Maybe. Yes, you can try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe makes it a little easier now to present to somebody. It looks like there's a couple people.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So basically, we're starting off with main three rules of budgeting and how to build your framework for your budget. So the first rule is to prioritize your money. When you create a plan for how your money will be spent, set your limits and do your best to stick with it. The second rule, look forward. Involves thinking about purchases or life events that will happen in the next year and taking the time to plan for them. Final rule, adjust and realign. Make a habit of revisiting your original plan. This rule allows you to make necessary adjustments along the way.
Creating a plan. So let's take a step back for a second. Why? A budget can help you keep track of all your spending, pay down your debts, and invest for the future, and put you at ease and stress-free for for finances period. Now let's take a look at, for example, on how to prioritize your finances.
So this is the monthly income for Jordan. Jordan has a set of what their monthly income looks like. Then they have laid out all of their monthly expenses. And take a moment, see if anything jumps out at you about Jordan's expenses. You may notice that their monthly expenses are higher than the money they're bringing in. By looking at these expenses, it's reasonable to say that some of these items are more of a necessity and more of a want. But it can be helpful to think in terms of needs versus wants for things like this. Your needs are the essentials. In this case, they would include rent, groceries, and debt repayment. Your wants are things you'd like to buy that are not completely necessary. These could include taking an Uber, paying for streaming subscriptions, and going out to restaurants. But how do you know that you are allocating your income in the best way? A great tip is to start with paying yourself first. Even if it's just a small amount, you can set up an automatic transfer from your account to a savings account. Start small and work your way up to increasing the amount you save each month.
So the rule of thumb essentially is to, when you get a paycheck, is to divide it between 50%, 30%, and 20%. So 50% is all towards your needs, whether it's your phone bill, gas, anything like that with regards to the house itself. 30% of it is going towards the actual wants. So if you want like a new phone, a new car, that sort of thing. So those are the percentages that's going to go towards saving for that. And then 20% is just to save up for any short-term goals. Maybe you want to go on a vacation, anything like that. That would be ideal to put some money aside for that.
Is that groceries for one person per month?
A little inaccurate, yeah. That's probably maybe double that at that point, but yeah, inflation. So yeah, it's kind of like just a ballpark, but you're probably looking more towards 800 for groceries. So that's where you kind of want to justify your debt repayments and your savings. And on the previous slide, it showed essentially all your entertainment restaurants. Do you have to eat out every? Do you have to do this? Do you have to spend money on an Uber where you can maybe afford a car payment instead? It might be a little bit cheaper than trying to get an Uber every time, but it's going to cost roughly the same. So, there's those options as well too. Okay.
Are we early or late or?
Just in between, we're okay.
Okay.
That's okay. If you guys do have any questions in between, if you want to stop us, feel free to. We definitely answer any questions you do have. Right now, we just started off with the whole budgeting. So we're just getting into that piece. And then we can get into the credit and then investing side of things.
Okay. So one of the expenses we saw falling into the needs category is debt repayment. This is an expense that affects many people's financial life, causing no shortage of stress. Let's begin to shake off the stress as we cover a few strategies you can use to help navigate the topic of debt. An important question that many people have is how to begin paying down your debt. To do this, there are a few things to consider in making it easier for yourself. One consideration is discussing your options of consolidating your high interest debts to a more cost effective low interest option. How you might ask, if for example you have a high balance on your credit card that you are not able to pay off quickly, you might want to consider a consolidation loan. This loan allows you to bundle your credit card and other high interest payments into a much lower interest loan. You will pay less interest and more principal, allowing the debt to decrease over the set time of the loan.
So the number one question is, I want to go back a slide, is should I pay down my debt first before starting to save? So it's a different scenario per person. So if you want to pay down your debt, it depends on how much you're paying in interest. So for a credit card, you're looking at 20% of interest that you're paying. So is it manageable? Is debt is going to make you not sleep at night? So those are kind of questions you want to ask yourself. Is it worth maybe applying for a loan at a lower rate? So that way it's at ease of mind that you can actually sleep easy, that your debt's being now paid down. There is also the option of putting money away as well at the same time. So you can put pre-authorized payments in like a savings plan. So you're paying down your debt, but you're also trying to save at the same time. So you're not trying to focus on one and not the other. So there's many options that we can support with regards to paying down debt and saving free money. Okay, so next topic would be, any questions regarding the debt consolidation or anything like that with regards to managing your debt? So with credit, this is more so with the borrowing and what to look for and how the bank looks at your overall financial picture of how we can provide you money to support your needs.
Credit is a trust indicator in the finance world that allows you to borrow money. Good credit can also be required to obtain certain goods or services, such as obtaining an apartment or better interest rates and even securing some jobs. We will use credit cards to illustrate how credit is built and the fundamentals of credit products. Other credit products may include loans, lines of credit, or mortgages. We'll cover these in future webinars. However, for many people, credit cards are the entry into the world of credit and continue to be used throughout their lives. Credit cards are like short-term loans with some flexibility in the repayment amount and where many transactions have an interest-free grace period. So let's talk about interest a little bit.
To understand how interest accumulates, let's imagine you make a $1,000 purchase on your credit card. If you only make your minimum payments, you'll need to end up paying more than what you initially spent. In this case, your annual interest rate is 25%. You'll need to pay an additional $20.50 after 1 month. After 3 months, this number goes up to additional $71. The longer you carry a balance, the more interest accumulates, making your debt grow over time. In addition to this, you may also have to pay such fees as late annual cash advance and foreign exchange fees. This depends on what type of credit you have and how you use it. Sorry, credit card.
So now that we have a credit card and have been making purchases with them and paying the bills on time, how does this all affect our credit? It boils down to your credit score. Credit scores are like your financial resume. This 3-digit number sums up your credit worthiness and how likely and capable you are to pay back much borrowed money. The higher the number is, the better. Let's explore the details of these digits and understand how they're calculated in order to open doors or maybe even close a few in the world of credit. To do this, let's see how different people use their credit cards and how their decisions may affect their credit score. Anna plans to make substantial payments using her credit card and consistently meets the minimum payment requirement each month. Mike uses his credit card on a daily basis for expenses such as gas and groceries, and then clears the entire balance monthly. Reflecting on their respective credit card habits, whose approach do you think might have a more favorable credit score? Mike's. Okay. So both Mike and Anna use their credit card in ways that many other Canadians do, and their habits lead to a particular credit score. Your credit score is calculated by the credit bureaus in Canada, so TransUnion, Equifax. What I want you to walk away with the understanding of habits that you can adopt today that will positively affect your credit score. In our example, both Mike and Anna made their payments on time. This is vital since your credit score determines how likely you are to pay your debt back. If the payments are late, it will negatively affect the score. The amount of debt you have also has an impact. So notice how Anna holds a higher balance and is paying off the minimum payment each month, while Mike holds a smaller balance and is able to pay off his entire balance. Mike's habits are ideal and would lead to a better credit score. The general rule of thumb is that your monthly debt load, including your other debts such as housing costs, should not be more than 40% of your income. Of course, this is different for everyone. This goes hand in hand with your credit utilization. You should try and keep this under 35%. For example, the $1,000 limit that Anna might have, they should try and keep a balance of $350. The smaller balance you have, the better. For this reason, Mike's habits are once again more ideal and would lead to a higher credit score. Our goal is to continue building our credit while implementing these healthy financial habits that have a positive impact on our credit score. This doesn't happen overnight and happen by requesting a lot, and does not happen by requesting a lot of credit. Longer credit relationships with various credit products can positively impact your score, demonstrating consistent, responsible credit management history. So we don't want to be getting a whole bunch of new products, and you know, the longer the relationship, the better.
Considering all these factors, Mike's credit card habits would lead to a move to a more favorable credit score. Building and maintaining Building and maintaining a solid credit score is vital to your financial health. Remember to manage your credit responsibility over time, keep your debt low, and make your payments on time to contribute to a healthier credit profile. Okay, any questions regarding the credit card scenarios and the credit score or anything like that? Yeah, I'll
Put my hand up just to engage. Is it also true that if you have too large of an open balance, like with your credit, can be a bad thing as well? Like if you're upping your limit on your credit card, but you're not actually utilizing that as frequently, that can affect it as well?
So it would depend on the situation. So when you're applying for credit, so you're applying for a loan, they take into consideration, your income and then what you have in existing debt and outgoing financial obligations. But they do also take into consideration your credit exposure. So the idea behind that is if we were to approve this loan and you were to go out and max out all your other credit products tomorrow, would you still be able to make that payment? So it is something that they consider for sure, your credit exposure.
So far, you created a healthy budget for yourself and learned to manage your credit. In this last section, we'll briefly touch base on investing, one of the elements of money management, by introducing you to diverse types of savings accounts and savings plans and accounts. Although we will not go into investment products such as bonds, mutual funds, and stocks, those details will be discussed in a future session that is dedicated to those topics. Throughout this session, we've been talking about importance it is saving money. What options do we have in terms where you put your savings? There are many different options. Savings and investing go hand in hand. For today, we'll quickly go over these 3 registered accounts that offer tax advantages that help you reach some of the specific savings goals. Each of these accounts have eligibility criteria and some conditions. I will highlight the main ones for you. So the first one is RSPs. Does anyone here have an RSP? So with RSPs, they help you save for retirement. You can open the plan at your financial institution and can start making contributions within the plan. One of the major benefits of an RSP is using deductible contributions to reduce your taxes. So when you have if you're a high income earner, any money that you put into an RSP that year will help reduce your overall annual income, which in turn will have you pay less at tax time. And one of these major benefits as well, like I just said, current year tax return will help reduce that and reduce the overall income tax you'll pay in the future. The next topic would be a tax-free savings account. Does anyone have a tax-free savings account? Okay. So tax-free savings account is good for both short-term and long-term goals. Any money that you put into a tax-free is tax-free, that you don't owe anything back to the government. So any interest that you do earn, you can keep it in your own pocket, and you're freely to take it out at any point in time. However, there is a contribution limit. Each person, it varies, but the max that anyone could put into a tax-free this year is $95,000. So if you haven't put any since the age of 18, you can put up to that amount. If you were to max out your $95,000, and let's just say you take out $10,000 of that for 1 year, the CRA still sees it as you still have that full balance in there. So what you have to do is take that $10,000, you only put it back in the following year, because otherwise it'll still show and affect your contribution limit. That's pretty much how this actually goes for that one. First-time home buyers, so we just came out with this in April, so it's fairly new to the industry. So with regards to this type of investment is specifically designed for saving towards the purchase of a first home with certain restrictions on how the funds can be used. The benefit of this plan are quite similar to an RSP and a tax-free combined. Just like an RSP, you can contribute to this, which is tax deductible, meaning you'll bring down your overall tax bracket. Similar to a tax-free, where any money that you do withdraws are not taxable. Remember in this presentation that we are only highlighting a few account types where you can direct your savings. However, you can further grow your funds by investing them, which is what we'll discuss in future sessions.
Thank you for coming and participating. Please take a moment to complete the survey that will launch in your browser window once you leave the webinar. All responses will be anonymous for those joining online. And if you have any questions in the future, please reach out and we'll do our Something that was mentioned last week about is that a lot of our members, they're Indigenous, and so an RSP is not really the way to go at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just because they'll be taxed, they'll contribute to it, but then they'll be taxed after, even though they make tax-free income. So, a tax-free savings account would be, a suggestion to
Of course.
go, like, to invest in first and then look at other options
Yeah.
after that, because you will be taxed on your RSP when you pull it.
So my income is not taxed.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask
Yeah.
you, so
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? So we keep in mind, of course, we're so close to town here in North Bay, some members are obviously on-reserve members that take advantage of non-taxable income, and, some members are living in town perhaps, or in other circumstances where they would have normal taxation, right? So that's definitely, we do have advice available kind of for both scenarios. Chelsea's absolutely correct. The first step when we're looking at our investment accounts or when we're looking at different options is determining your tax exemption, right? So are we exempt or are we not? So absolutely, some of the mechanisms that we just showed you here are for a standard, standard taxation scenario. And again, just kind of given our proximity to town today, we thought that would be appropriate to share and kind of have on record. For an individual that's non-taxable, absolutely becomes a customizable situation. RSP definitely becomes less material, and tax-free savings account can then be utilized as a tool. Having said that, deciding which investment that you're going to utilize determines even if the tax-free savings account is necessary. Because, for example, if we utilize a tax-exempt investment option like a GIC on an on-reserve branch, then you don't even need a tax-free savings account because that investment income is going to be tax-free anyway. But the whole point of the matter is that in each individual's, individual circumstance, our teams in North Bay will work with you for that kind of a customized solution and that customized advice. But an important piece that we can't speak on fully is the taxation aspect of it, right? And so that's where it is important to have some tax advice as well. Even when it comes to the investments. Like for yourself, like I understand your employment income is tax exempt.
Yes.
However, if you were to do an investment, even if you're living on reserve and the rest of your income is non-taxable, if you do an investment and invest in a stock or something on the market, that income will be taxable. Because the rules of taxation, you have to live on reserve and generate income on reserve.
But you had mentioned a GIC might be an option where I
That's right.
can invest and it can remain tax-free.
That's correct, and we have that ability, as well as some of the other banks as well. The TD, basically, we would book that investment on one of our branches that's on reserve. And then that way you would meet the CRA's criteria, which is live on reserve and earn income on reserve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I know you said that you don't give tax advice, and my apologies.
No,
I
it's not.
thought
I
that
just-
was an option
I
for this program.
I just
That's
put
why
that
we-
big disclaimer on,
Yeah.
technically, yes, I read the tax code and I can even point you in that direction, so I can share my opinion with you,
Okay.
but I just have to be very clear that.
Oh, that's fair. I'm only looking for an opinion.
Certainly.
So,
Regulations and all that, we gotta
Right.
be very, very clear.
that's fair. I'm excited about that GIC that I could put the money into
Certainly.
so that it could remain growing as tax-free income for the generations past me,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So it's not really money I need to use or want to
I hear
use.
you.
So it's something I want to be able to give to my children or my children's
It's a
children.
beautiful plan, honestly,
And-
that's really nice.
And so that's the goal. But what I'm concerned about is how it's impacting my husband and I's income now.
Right.
So I work on reserve and live on reserve, so I
Yeah, so
pay
you're
no
tax-exempt.
taxes.
Zero on the
But
line.
my husband's pension,
Okay,
and I did a little digging, and I'm concerned about having to pay back 15% of his pension
right,
because it's gonna impact our income for the year.
That's right, as a spousal.
As a spousal,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Okay,
so that was my concern and kind of why I came here, because I would, you know, if there's a way to sort of move that money somewhere that, so it doesn't impact me,
Certainly,
that would be great.
certainly, yeah, so that definitely is, you know, a little bit more because of the husband's taxable income, I would say there's a little bit more than the basics, so to speak. So you'll definitely leave here with some value. I'm gonna give you a contact number for a just taxation specialist out of Sudbury, but they'd be happy to give you some advice. But based on my opinion there, as long as the GIC is held in your name solely, it should still fall under that exemption category.
So if I move that whole amount and put it in there,
That's right.
it does not become, I don't have to disclose that as income?
That, it would be considered non-taxable, same as your employment income.
Say, oh,
Yeah, that's right. So it would not show up on the top line, it would show up on either line. I think line 71 is employment income, so you know, I'll try to be an accountant sometimes.
right?
But yeah, so-
Like, I'm wondering how I got away with this, like not writing the 15% all along, but that's why, it's because I'm not online.
that's right, because you have no taxable income, just that's it, plain and simple, right? So
Okay.
they can't take it.
I wasn't sure if it was like
Oh, no, fair
considered
question.
there
Yeah.
or just your income as a whole, so, okay.
No,
good.
totally fair question.
Good
Like,
to know.
again, like even for me, like my opinions are on the basics,
Right.
right? Like they're all.
I just didn't want to write that.
They're all, oh no, hey, and I don't blame you, like, and I'm in the same boat. I even to be transparent, I tell some clients that like you'll sit down with one of our planners and in some situations, they'll map it out over, like it's usually over a longer term, over a 10, 15, 20 year period. And they might say, so if you do the GICs and you don't pay taxes, you'll have this at the end. However, if you invest in the market and you pay taxes, you'll actually end up with more at the end of the cup of tea.
Right,
Because the market averages higher returns than the GIC.
right.
However, usually on a shorter term investment horizon, the GICs will be beneficial because you're saving that 30, 40, 50% tax. Right? So it's all kind of customizable, but the way I always look at it is the first thing is determine the individual's tax exemption. Like, of course, if your income, you know, do you live on reserve, is it even a possibility to be exempt? Then the second decision from there is kind of what the team is getting into today, as far as which investment vehicle is going to be the best for you after that.
So maybe the best thing for me to do is to talk to my son who will inherit that money.
But that may be the case, yeah.
And see,
Or I would honestly say, even just based on the information you've given, since it sounds like you'll have a long time horizon,
yes,
I would say it's more than likely, even though it sucks to pay the tax, it's more than likely you'll be better off to consider a market investment over that long term.
okay.
And it can still be conservative or balanced, you know,
Right.
the TD advisor or whichever
Well,
advisor.
my grandbaby's 9 months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And I would
it's not an
also,
urgent need.
and your advisor would also advise you as well. I don't know their parents, you know, economic situation or what have you. I'm like the #1 fan of an RESP, a registered education savings plan. So, you know, if you are planning on starting a savings for someone that young, the biggest benefit from it is that depending on the amount of money that you put in, the government takes in $3. So it goes up to certain limits. But for example, I think if you contribute to up to $2,500 a year, then the government will add in a free $500 in addition to that, up to a certain lifetime maximum. But the long story short is at the end of the day, the student or the grandchild in your case could end up with, you know, a few extra $1,000 of free money from the government. If they decide not to go to school, the government takes their money back and you keep everything that you save. So that would be it's an option that I would consider as well for you. But all this, like I
Our
said,
community has an educational program as well
there you go, right?
for our children, so, I mean,
It may not be as valuable in your
Yeah.
case, right? Totally something just for you to consider. Yeah.
And I got some great advice from a lawyer a long time ago that said that when you're dead, you should not control the living, like you shouldn't
Yeah,
You shouldn't allocate money for a specific task
That's fair.
when, like, who knows what they'll need in 20 or 30 or 40 years.
That's right.
You know-
School could be down payment. could be
It could,
whatever.
yeah, you don't know, so it's best not to try and and decide how that money should be
At
used.
least you have a plan set in place for 20 years of growth, right? So-
Yeah, that I know at
Growth,
least,
yeah.
like, I know that most likely this money will not ever be needed, hopefully,
Yeah.
you know, but if it is,
Yeah.
you know, I want it to be available for
Yeah.
whatever they
It'll always be
need, right?
accessible.
Yeah,
Sure.
So having said that, for example, and just even to get even a little bit more specific, if you did do those market investments, versus doing the non-taxable GIC, then now a tax-free savings account makes a lot more sense. Right now, you can still avoid that taxation by having it inside that account, right? So it's just, it's really, it's like a decision tree. You just start at the top and kind of
Right.
work your way down, like, you know, is your income taxable? Yes, no. Depending on what the answer is, then you go in a certain direction.
right.
And then some folks say, I don't care if the stock market makes me more money, I don't want to pay any tax. That is just where my heart lies. Then you say, no problem. Then that's your decision. That's no problem. We'll go to GIC at Buffalo Run, in Buffalo Run, Alberta, our newest branch on reserve there. And it could be a completely tax-free investment. Yeah, so it's totally customizable to whatever you need to do.
But what, just out of curiosity, what did those GICs pay?
Right now, actually, really strong right
Oh,
now,
really?
yeah. Rates are still high, like prime rate's still high, and it's still high, so that keeps the GICs in a pretty good spot. I don't know them off the top of my head right now, but we're above 5% for the most part, depending on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think right now, we do have some short-term savings options for new account owners. There was a few bonus offers available as well. Good.
That's really
I can't remember, I think, your colleague had pulled them up last time, so those offers, some other.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, so we'll give you our cards. I'm gonna give you the contact for the
Yes,
accounting
please,
team.
yeah.
So just, that's something you can follow up on. You don't have to you have to hire them, but they'll, they'll give you a bit of advice. But, you know, if you are kind of taking in some large sums, it might, in some cases, be a good idea to have a higher level of accounting, even just for the 1 year, so.
Yeah,
But again, totally your decision.
right. No, I appreciate you. I
So-
love the comment.
Yeah, certainly. Anything on your mind? Anything specific?
I just want to know when the future sessions you're gonna have to talk about investing.
Yeah. For sure, so well, we do have, there's another community session coming up, it'll be pretty much a similar type distribution. But there's going to be some online sessions that are just in the final stages of approval right now, like kind of expand on those points. Not to mention, if you have kind of one-on-one questions or just one-on-one advice, that we're available for that as well. It doesn't have to be, in the event type format. Chelsea, anything on your mind out there?
No, not really. NFN is looking to host more. So this is kind of so some planning stages, and then we're gonna look at maybe hosting some more in the fall. To try to get that information out there and see if there's a little bit more participation when it starts raining
Yeah,
outside.
I was surprised.
We hear you, and I know it's a challenge, so it's no worries.
Beyond had nobody last week, so I mean.
Yeah, well,
Really?
well, thanks so much for coming. But no, like, and no, Chelsea, this is kind of the condensed version. We also have a longer version, 5 parts, that is more specific to Indigenous communities. Like, we acknowledge this one's like a little bit kind of baseline, but again, to squeeze like 5 sessions into one, we just had to keep it with the basics and the stuff that everybody, that all team colleagues are really comfortable speaking on. But again, you know, if for a larger group, if we're asking for something more specific, we can deliver that too. It's just a bit longer.
Yeah, so tomorrow,
We can
I
talk
think
about
we're gonna have a few more people that are more in the retirement planning stages. So just talking about like RSP, because currently NFM does have a pension, and we're currently fighting with CRA because they are non-taxable, so we're fighting with them to make sure that their pension is not taxable, but it's a very lengthy process.
I can imagine.
And so maybe just those conversations, encouraging a TFSA,
Mhm.
and then how an RSP turns into a group at a certain point.
Yeah.
Just because that's where they are in their life,
Yeah.
their stage. Because I think there was a lot of questions on an RSP and a RIP, the differences between them,
Yep.
and how to maximize the TFSA.
Yep.
And then they were, like, a lot of people were, more comfortable with the GIC just because it's a guaranteed investment versus the stock market is, you know, can fluctuate.
Yeah.
It's all depending on what your preferences are.
That's right.
So tomorrow, we can maybe speak more on like an RSP, how that transitions, just because that's where we kind of are at.
Yeah, I'll stay if I can, relay that, to the
Definitely.
delivering tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's the same approach, just, you know, one branch
Yeah.
just serves and,
Yeah.
and Brandon's team, as well.
Yeah, we can have to expand on each topic, because it kind of explodes into a different aspect, like you said, like a riff, so it's definitely
Yeah.
something that we can, go more in depth on.
Yeah.
And it'll be the best option, I think, for
Yeah.
us.
100%.
Totally agree. Yeah. Use my card here, in case you have any questions as well. If you want to take a one-on-one session, just like with the advisor in person, even just like a consultation, just to kind of see where your head's at and help you with that.
Okay, cool.
Same thing for yourself too, if there's anyone that's,
I assume we're good to end the stream, eh?
Yeah.
Chelsea, did you want to address the question that was?
Oh, you don't need a best.
Oh, what is there stuff online?
I know, I think so much. I think I'm
No, I'm actually good, thank you.
I've read three of the bags in this, I know, I could bring bags in the stores and I'm like, I'm gonna buy one, I'll just stop.
Or for your grocery delivery, if it was 10.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, so there is a question online, the question does, I need to look for my debt, I have 2 credit cards that I need to pay from 2014, how do I go about that?
So that's definitely when we would want to start looking into a consolidation loan. So basically and even if the credit cards are outside of TD, we basically buy that debt, we consolidate it into one single loan with a max amortization of 7 years, so you've maxed 7 years to pay it off. And those loans are generally at a much lower interest rate than a credit card is. So we're seeing them around maybe like 13, it's all customer based, so it can vary. I would say the average I've seen is maybe around 13%, 15%, which is a little bit lower than 20% on a credit card. And that way you're making monthly payments till they're paid down, and then since closed loans, they're not revolving, it can't be reused like a credit card. Once it's paid down to zero, it's done, it's closed. That would definitely be the first step into that, is looking into consolidation.
It also gives you peace of mind too, in knowing that there's payments that are automatically coming out of your account to pay for these credit cards, whereas you see the bill and you're like, oh, I see the interest, I don't know if I can pay that this time. So this time with the loan, it actually gives you, you're paying more towards the principal than you are towards the interest, whereas a credit card, majority of your bill that you see, there's that huge interest payment that you're just trying to make by, but just making that interest payment. So it's just like a peace of mind as well too, when you convert that to a loan. It's just paying everything down quicker. And if it's in the budget to increase those payments, so then it pays down a lot more quicker than the average 7 years to pay off a debt.
And I think that's all that's up there, eh, Chelsea, for
Yeah, I don't
questions.
think-
Yeah, so I think we're good to end the stream then.